And the thing is that it tells you how many has been sold this month, this day, and all of a sudden. And when you see that thing being sold on Amazon, what does it tell you? It tells you that it's legit, doesn't it? Did you know that these are sold on Amazon? They're sold on Amazon. But what is the importance? Why do we not know about this? Guess what?
Walking down the street, you may notice something interesting at the entrance to some of the houses. Over there, that little box on the right side of the door. A mezuzah. It might look like a poorly installed doorbell or some type of decoration. Some might come in silver or fancy designs, but don't get distracted. Those are just protective cases. What's important is what goes inside. The mezuzah itself is a small scroll, handwritten by an expert scribe on parchment. On the outside, it has the Hebrew letters Shin, Daled, and Yud, which spell out one of God's holy names. But it's also an acronym that means Guardian of the Doors of Israel. That's because when this scroll is properly affixed to a doorpost, it provides spiritual protection. Think of it like a spiritual bicycle helmet, just a little extra needed protection if anything should go wrong, God forbid. That's why it's so important to have a mezuzah on every door in your house, especially the front door, and to make sure that the scrolls themselves are kosher, and that they've actually been handwritten by a professional sofer, a Jewish scribe, on authentic parchment. What's in the actual scroll? The first two portions of the Shema, beginning with the verse, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." In addition to being foundational texts in Judaism, these two paragraphs are where God commands us, "You shall write these words upon the doorposts of your house and upon your city gates." And guess how you say doorpost in Hebrew? Mezuzah. So which doors need to have mezuzahs installed? As long as the doorway has two side posts and a lintel above, that doorway needs a mezuzah. There are a few exceptions. You don't need to put one on a small closet or anything like that. You also don't need a mezuzah on your bathrooms, because gross. But don't forget some walk-in closets, garages, utility rooms, hallways, as well as your office, and all kinds of unconventional doorways that might need mezuzahs. If you're unsure about any of the rooms in your house or where to place it, don't be shy and ask your rabbi where you should and shouldn't put a mezuzah. I'm sure he'd be happy to help. But don't let the rabbi have all the fun. Installing the mezuzah is something you can do yourself. Once you have your kosher mezuzahs, all you need is a head covering if you're a guy, and a way to affix the mezuzah to the doorpost. Nails, screws, and even double-sided tape, whatever's going to hold it snug, will work great for this. The mezuzah should be hung on the right side of the doorpost when you enter the room. Sometimes that can get a little bit confusing, like, what if there's no door? If it's not clear, it's easy to ask a rabbi. It should be placed on the bottom of the top third of the doorway. The mezuzah should be right side up, and if possible, slanted, so that the top of the mezuzah faces inwards towards the room. Hold the mezuzah in place, and say the special blessing. Now just attach it on, and you're done. Can you feel the blessings? A mezuzah transforms an ordinary room from a place that we just spend time in to a holy space flowing with divine energy and all the blessings that come with it. That's why in 1974, the Rebbe launched a campaign for every Jewish home to have a kosher mezuzah scroll, and to make sure that existing mezuzahs are periodically checked by a scribe. Sometimes life can have its ups and downs, and the mezuzah helps us remember God and ensure we're blessed and protected along the way. A kosher mezuzah ensures that we're getting all the blessings that God is surely showering down upon us. Our Jewish values should exude outwards into our environment, no matter where and no matter when, until the very structure of our home cries out, God is one. Some people think that the center of Judaism is the synagogue, or maybe the Western Wall. Mezuzahs remind us that the center of Jewish life is the home, your home.
So, that sounds all good, but does God say that we should do this? I don't know, let's see. Deuteronomy 6, let's go there.
6:4-9.
Yeah.
11:13. Oh, I didn't see that last one.
All right. This is the Shema. It says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently to thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by thy way, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. Thou shalt bind them a sign for a sign upon thy hand, and thy frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the post of thy house and on thy gates. And it shall be, when the Lord thy God has brought thee out of the land which I swore to their fathers, that he will remember that. So basically in Deuteronomy 6 it tells us that we should talk about them constantly. We should talk about them, and they should be a part of our life. Not only did he tell us once, he told us twice. Deuteronomy 11, 13, 21. And it shall come to pass, if you hearken diligently, in other words, if you will listen to my commandments, which I command you this day, to love the Lord thy God, and to serve him with all your heart and soul, that I will give you rain, that I will give you the rain of your land in due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that thou may gatherest in thy corn, and thy wine, and thy oil. And I will send grass in thy fields. For thy cattle thou shalt eat and be full. What does that say right there?
He gave you everything in a nutshell.
What was we talking about? What started this whole conversation?
Missoula.
What started this whole conversation is, why do we not seem fulfilled? Why do we have and then it goes away? Why do we not hold on to these things?
Wasn't taught.
The thing is that it tells us plainly, God will supply everything. But what is the condition for this thing? There is a condition. If we want God to supply all these things, maybe one of the reasons why that we're not being fulfilled, that we're not being supplied, that we're not holding on to these things, because somewhere we got it wrong. Is that possible? Think about it, Danny. We've told everybody forever that if you will serve God and you will do these things, God will bless you. But it also tells you that if you're not, maybe something's wrong. Maybe we're done something wrong. So what does it tell us to do? He says, and I will send grass to thy field. He says, take heed to yourself that your heart be not deceived, and ye turn aside and serve other gods and worship them. Then the Lord's wrath will be kindled against you, and he shall shut up the heaven, for there'll be no rain, and the land yield not her fruit, unless you perish quickly from the good land which the Lord has given you. So it tells you right there, if for some reason, Eric, that this land is drying up, that you're not being blessed, listen. What is he telling you? Look. In other words, if you are in this situation where things are going wrong and you can't figure out what it is, go back to God. Go back and say, okay, God, where am I wrong at? What did I not listen to? What lesson are you trying to tell me? Therefore, shall you lay up my words in your heart and your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be constantly before you. And you shall teach them your children, speaking of them when they sitteth in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, when you liest down, and when you rise up. In other words, Artie was sitting there Friday at his house. And I pick on Artie a lot, because it's fun. But Artie was talking to, and I know y'all sound strange, but Artie was talking to the post lady. And you know what Artie was doing when he was talking to this post lady? No. He was inviting her to church.
Oh, wow.
He was inviting her. Not only did he invite her once, I promise you, he invited her 20 times to church. And was explaining why you should come to church. Imagine if every one of us in this room decided for 1 week we would invite one person 20 times to church. What would happen to this church alone? But this is what he's talking about. I was sitting there last night, and I don't traditionally go and think, okay, God, because again, my mind it starts buzzing. But last night, I'm like, okay, God. And he says, find the video on Jewish thresholds. Find the video that talks about, is it even important? Is it even important to establish a threshold in your home? We echoed this tradition years ago, but we were never really taught why. This talks about when you're coming in, you place it on the bottom third, which is a whole point in it. I'm on top third, but the bottom of top third. You place it to where it slants off, where the water runs off. You also, on the outside of your door, that way as you're coming in, but also as you're going out. It's put there on the outside of your door because people understand something. We talked about thresholds last week. When God told the children of Israel to take, during the Passover, to take the lamb, to sacrifice the lamb, put the mark on the doorway, he was talking about the mezuzah. Last week we talked about why the lamb was so important. The Egyptians did not know that that was the Paschal lamb. What that was a sign that they rejected Egypt. Because the lamb was a symbol of their two top gods. And they said, even Moses said to Pharaoh, he says, man, if we go and sacrifice this lamb, it's going to cost us some trouble. Because it had already caused the Jews trouble. Because it was against the law to kill a lamb. And when you took that lamb and you sacrificed that lamb and you put it on the outside of your threshold, that was a public statement that you denounce pagan religion, but it was also a statement that your God is more powerful than everything else. That even to the point of rejection and death, I will serve God. That's what the lamb stood for. It meant nothing to the Egyptians as far as God, but it represented their God. And it was a public denouncement. For the Jews to put this on the outside of their door, it showed the world who this house serves. We, in the old days, if you was inside looking out, think about this thing. There was always a picture or a cross by the door, wasn't there? You remember that? Or when you would walk in, what would you see on another wall? It was always there to remind you of God. That's what this is. But as well, they took it to where they took God's blessings literally. They took God's blessings literally because he just said that if you will love me and if you will place me in front of everybody and everything, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to take care of you. If you do these things, if you teach them to your children, if you follow the thing, and if you make a public stand, and they actually put them on every doorway except to the bathroom. They put them on every door. In Feng Shui, the Chinese teaches you, do not line up your front door with your back door. The Chinese don't believe in it. They believe that if you lined up your front door with your back door, your blessings would come in and go out. They believed it. There was power behind it. Still to this day, they believe it. That's why when you walk in, they have all these different things, and they want the blessing to reside inside. They wanted it enough that they built an entire culture around their belief. The Jews built their entire culture around it. What happened in 1974 with the Jews?